Daniel Horowitz over at Conservative Review, where I'm editor-in-chief, but I don't write these things for these columnists. They write them. They have their own perspective. And they're hired because they have integrity and they're smart and they write well. Over at Conservative Review, Daniel Horowitz, he says, while Rubio is widely known for his comprehensive amnesty bill, his name is also on another atrocious and much more recent immigration bill. Rubio is yet to be asked about it at a debate or in any major forum on the campaign trail. In January 2015, 1 year ago, Rubio joined that lousy, lying Orrin Hatch as an original co-sponsor of a bill that is deceptively named the Immigration Innovation Act. The Immigration Innovation Act, or I squared. The only original thing about this bill is that its supporters have innovatively prevented the American people from noticing how economically destructive it would be if it ever became law. So what is this? What is this I squared act? Well, it calls for a dramatic increase in the number of foreign workers that can be brought into the United States under H-1B visas. On paper, the program is ostensibly designed to allow U.S. employers to find highly educated individuals from abroad to fill highly technical positions that could not be filled by Americans. But in reality, the H-1B program has been rampantly abused by corporate America to fire experienced American information technology employees and replace them with cheap foreign labor. H-1B visas cover virtually any immigrant with a run-of-the-mill bachelor's degree in numerous disciplines. It's hardly limited to rocket scientists. Stay with me. The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which represents 235,000 Americans in the electronics and computing industries, came out forcefully against the I-Squared Act shortly after its introduction, stating, in no uncertain terms, the bill would, quote, help destroy the U.S. high-tech workforce. Despite protestations from the corporate disciples of H-1B visas, story after story after story demonstrate how the program is being abused and is in desperate need of substantial reform or outright elimination. Somebody needs to ask Marco Rubio why he supports expansion of a job-killing visa program and legislation that would trigger the loss of even more American jobs. With that in mind, you'll be happy to know that the Hatch-Rubio I-Squared Act proposes precisely zero reform to the H-1B program and calls for a more than threefold increase in H-1B visas. And while the legislation was technically introduced by Hatch, Rubio was known as an original co-sponsor, which is Rubio's way of saying, if Senator Hatch hadn't beat me to introducing the bill, I would have introduced it. Now, Rubio's continued support of the I-Squared Act is particularly mind-boggling, given the public relations meltdown and subsequent class action lawsuit against ABC Disney for its termination of literally hundreds of Disney IT workers in Orlando, Florida, and its subsequent replacement of them with H-1B foreign labor. We've talked about these articles and these stories. Remember? People are interviewing their foreign replacements. H-1B visas is not about displacing American jobs for foreign jobs, ladies and gentlemen. At least theoretically, it's intended to fill jobs that can't be filled by Americans. So it's being abused. In what is typical of a lot of other H-1B displacement situations, Disney fired these experienced IT workers en masse, not because they'd done anything wrong or were underperforming, but because they were being paid what they were worth, and it was cutting into Disney CEO Bob Iger's Martini Fund. Now, as if mass firing of Americans for being good at what they do was not enough, these Americans had to suffer the indignity of training their foreign replacements in order to receive their severance or retirement pay. Disney's abuse came to light as a result of the courageous disclosure by a couple of former IT workers who'd been let go. But there are other untold stories of H-1B abuse out there, and a lot of them are reportedly in Florida. And by the way, I cite this in Plunder and Deceit. I go into detail which companies have done this. Those of you who have Plunder and Deceit, you know this. Now, because I believe in truth-telling, and so does Horowitz and CR, Ted Cruz also got roped into this ridiculous quest for more H-1B visas when he first entered the Senate and signed on to ridiculous legislation to expand the program. But at least he's been moved by the Disney scandal and has sponsored legislation with Senator Sessions to reform the program. We can ask legitimate questions about whether Cruz's conversion is part of his broader, strong record on immigration or simply a campaign pander. But the bigger question is, which other candidates are still bad on the issue despite the publicly reported scandals? And the answer is Rubio. Now, the Trump campaign has lobbed fire at Rubio for his unapologetic pro-corporatist support for the H-1B program and the I-Squared Act specifically. But Trump himself, let me repeat this, but Trump himself has used quite a few foreign visa programs in his day to hire cheaper foreign workers instead of Americans, and he needs to be asked about this as well. And I notice this part of the Horowitz story is being buried to the extent it's linked to it all. And I would ask our friends at Fox and others, why aren't you digging into this stuff? Why aren't you asking these questions of Rubio and Trump? My God, they're on your damn network day in and day out, like you're doing a Jerry Lewis telethon, for God's sakes. So what are we talking about? What's Horowitz writing about? Trump has been and continues to be an all too frequent user of several foreign visa programs. This is not conjecture, but fact. According to Business Insider, an earlier Reuters investigation determined the U.S. Department of Labor records show that 9 companies that are majority owned by Trump have imported at least 1,100 foreign workers on temporary visas since 2000. While some of these visas are for fashion models, he's also brought hundreds of others into jobs that Americans would do. Waitresses, cooks, event managers, even an assistant golf course superintendent. Now, for those who are curious, Trump is still using these visa programs to bring in foreign workers, his campaign rhetoric aside. According to this same report, Trump's posh Palm Beach, Florida luxury resort, Mar-a-Lago, filed paperwork with the Department of Labor last July, in other words, in 2015, to bring in 70 foreign workers to work at Mar-a-Lago. These are jobs that Americans could have right now. Mar-a-Lago appears to have brought in as many as 787 foreign workers in 2006, by the way, writes Horowitz. Trump needs to explain his use of foreign worker visa programs, particularly given his chest-thumping but detail-free pronouncements about how he will be the greatest jobs-producing president ever. To his credit, he's critical of the H-1B program on his website, but when asked about Mark Zuckerberg's quest for more foreign workers just last October, during the CNBC debate, he echoed the open borders talking points. He said, I was not all that critical of Zuckerberg. I was not at all. In fact, frankly, he's complaining about the fact that we're losing some of the most talented people. They go to Harvard, they go to Yale, they go to Princeton, they come from another country, they're immediately sent out. I'm in favor of keeping these talented people here so they can go to work in Silicon Valley. Later on in the debate, moderator Becky Quick asked Trump about his website and whether he supports the H-1B program. Trump simply said, quote, I'm in favor of people coming into this country legally. You can call it anything you want. See, the issue here, ladies and gentlemen, is not just illegal immigration. It's legal immigration, the abuse of our visa system, the abuse of the H-1B visa program, as Horowitz just wrote and I've talked about before. He says if Trump is going to garner a lot of support based on his supposed position on immigration, shouldn't we at least get some clarity at this late hour during the race? There are a lot of questions about positions taken by candidates over the course of their career. They're legitimate questions. But Trump, who sells himself as pro-American worker candidate, and Rubio, who claims to have seen the light on immigration, have never been taken to task for their existing support of importing foreign workers. Now, I know some of you Trump people are heartbroken. Actually, you're not. You don't care. I know some of you Rubio people think this is unfair, but you really don't. You don't care either. No. Cruz is a liar, and he lies all the time. Oh, he's the worst. Oh, my God, he lies about this. He lies about Planned Parenthood. Just lying. I don't think so. Oh, and one other thing. I direct this to you, Donald. This is from the Washington Examiner, another well-known leftist sheet, right? By Al Weaver. Former Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, who I've become friendly with, by the way, is angry about being quoted in the latest Donald Trump attack on Ted Cruz. Coburn called the quote an absolute fabrication. Now, an absolute fabrication, ladies and gentlemen, is a flat-out lie. As part of his never-ending criticism of Cruz, Trump's Twitter feed retweeted and published a quote ostensibly from Coburn criticizing Cruz as, quote, one of the most dishonest people, unquote, in Washington. Coburn never said that. During a phone interview with the Washington Examiner, the former Oklahoma senator fired back at Trump. Quote, "It's an absolute fabrication. I never said that, period," Coburn told the Examiner. "It's unfortunate he would use my name to say something dishonest. It's a total fabrication. To me, it's more of loose play with the truth and loose play with the words," Coburn said. In other words, Trump is lying. Trump retweeted his social media director, Dan Savino, in turn quoting Coburn, talking about the Texas senator. Quote, "He's without a doubt one of the most dishonest people in D.C., read the quote, attributed to Coburn. But the quote appears to come directly from progressive website forwardprogress.com and writer Alan Clifton. He used the exact language to describe Cruz. "I've made no secret of my total disdain for Ted Cruz," this leftist wrote. "He epitomizes everything that's wrong with the Republican Party. He is without a doubt one of the most dishonest people in Washington, and in my opinion, a complete psychopath." The Cruz campaign did not take Trump's use of the quote lying down, remarking that it's more of the same from the real estate mogul who currently leads Cruz and Senator Rubio in South Carolina. Now, here's the problem. Not only was this a flat-out lie by Trump and his staff, Trump just said it 15 minutes ago at a rally. He repeated the lie. He repeated the lie that Coburn had said these things about Cruz when Coburn said it is an absolute fabrication. Why are you lying, Donald? Why don't you stop?